Environment Natural Resources Policy Committee to order. Representative Melin, House File 2651. And I want to bring Mr. Meyer up right now because I know he needs to go immediately upstairs. Could you give us your testimony, Mr. Meyer? The chair will move House File 2651 to be moved to the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection Policy. Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, members, the DNR has no problems or concerns with the bill before you today. It doesn't impact management of deer or anything like that. It's more of a social issue surrounding deer hunting, so we do support the bill, and I can stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Meyer? He'll be leaving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Melin, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And this bill simply allows for a deer raffle to take place basically during deer season within the realm of charitable gambling, just like we do for fishing contests, which is already legal under the game and fish laws. This provides for, I guess, what you would think of as a big buck contest. Not the big buck hunter game you play in the bars, but actually going out deer hunting and competing for the biggest buck. So it includes just deer, the same as what we would treat fish for charitable gaming purposes. And I know that the Gaming Control Board is here if there's any questions in that regard. But, from my understanding, the DNR doesn't have a whole lot involved with these contests other than you have to obviously be a licensed hunter in order to participate. Otherwise, it's managed by the Gaming Control Board just as any other charitable gambling is.
So can you, Representative Melin, can you just quickly walk us through how the hunter gets the deer, what he does, the steps to get it so they can be on the raffle, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Again, it's licensed by the Gaming Control Board, which adopts the rules as they do for, as I stated, the fishing contests. And an organization sells the ticket for charitable gaming, and then you're in a sort of deer contest, and I guess whoever goes out and shoots the biggest buck, for example, wins the contest. So like any other charitable gambling.
Okay, someone from the Gambling Control Board here?
Yes. Right here.
Come right on up forward. My question is to you, sir. Identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Steve Peterson. I'm the licensing supervisor with the Gambling Control Board.
Hello, Mr. Peterson. So can this be done under like a Class B license as a raffle, or can it be done under an exemption, which allows maximum number of events, maximum number of prizes?
Mr. Chair, I believe the language now allows for any organization from a license to an exempt to be able to participate in the contest. Representative Melin spoke of it being just for deer hunting. We had suggested that it be opened up to all big game contests in Minnesota just because first it was ice fishing, deer, next year it'll be the ducks, so we thought it just worked and put it all together. And I don't know, did you get that corrected language?
Mr. Chair, they did offer me that language. My intent all along was just to include deer. I think if we start including all wild game, there'd probably be a lot more questions and a lot more issues to talk about. So my intent all along was just to include deer, so that's all we're including. So
I apologize.
Unfortunately, the next time that, the Ducks Unlimited or some other group wants to come forward and include their special wild game, they're going to have to introduce a separate bill to do that.
Okay, Representative Fabian?
No, the board wouldn't have.
I had a question for you, Representative Fabian. What are the big game animals that we do hunt in Minnesota?
Well, we have elk, Mr. Chair, we have elk, and we have deer, we have bear, we have wolves.
I'm not.
No, wolves don't.
Wolf is not a big game animal.
No, it's not.
Moose?
Well, we don't hunt moose currently. That's been suspended. So
my question is, Representative Melin, this is solely for deer.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions by the members? Anyone in the audience like to testify for or against the Melin bill? I don't see Mr. Bennett in the room. He must not have any discussion as well. So the chair will renew his motion for 2651 to be moved to the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection, Finance and Policy. All in favor of the bill say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Melin.
Thank you, members.
The next bill we are going to have is Representative Hansen's bill, House File 1408. Representative Hansen moves House File 1408 to be laid over for possible inclusion in the DNR policy bill. Representative Hansen, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This is a bill that passed unanimously through the Elections Committee, and is here before you. As many of you may know, I was a soil and water supervisor prior to being elected to the legislature. I would ask, before we walk through the bill, that you pull out the legal size sheet of paper and just look at this. And the bill, as you're pulling that sheet out to look at, this bill relates to the election of soil and water conservation district supervisors, and it only relates to the 7-county metro area. There are 2 counties in the metro area that it would not apply to. One is that Washington County instituted this in 2002, and Hennepin County, by the time the effective date rolls around on this, will probably not exist as a conservation district anymore. It'll be a county function. In 2002, the soil and water conservation districts came to the legislature and asked for the option to elect soil and water supervisors by methods different than the methods that have been there since the 1940s. And I want to just explain how soil and water supervisors are elected in all districts with the exception of Washington County. They run county-wide, but they must run from a nomination district. So you run from a district without a primary and run county-wide. So in the metropolitan area, if you look at Dakota County, you have almost 400,000 people voting on soil and water supervisor, or that could vote. That's the population. The potential population is almost 400,000 people.
So, Representative Hansen, if your name was Dill, you'd almost surely win.
Or if your name is Hansen, it's a pretty good shot. You might win in a ballot. You will see the similar thing in Anoka County and Carver County, but the disparity is not as great in the district. So if you do not live in the nomination district, you can't run. So I think at Dakota County last year, and there were 6 or 7 candidates in nomination District 1, which had 210,000 people. If you look at the population, you'll see 3 districts that if you aggregate, these are 5-member boards. If you aggregate the votes, it takes 3 votes to win on a 5-member board. You can see you have 3 votes there where the total number of people, the population in those districts is about 38,000 people, 40,000 people. So those 3 districts can outvote 210 plus 150,000 people. So what my bill does is says that you would run according to population. Now, you're going to hear testimony where people don't like that. They don't like the change. They're going to say, well, we leave it up to the local option. The local option has been there for soil and water districts since 2002. Only one county has chosen to go by county commissioner district. I believe that county commissioner elections, particularly in the county commissioner districts, particularly in the metro area, is a fair issue. I think it will provide for a greater diversity of the board. I think it will provide for more contested elections. And I think it will, let me just back up. At-large elections around the country were a common method back probably 75 years ago. But in most parts of the country, they were done away with because they had a discriminatory effect. If you had to run by a district and run county-wide, there's no way you can, in these large population areas, reach all the voters needed to do that. So my bill is here. I know that there's folks who will disagree with that, and you'll hear from them. But I would ask you to look, just like the Elections Committee did, look at the data in front of you, look at the population, look at the voter turnout, and look at the drop-off in these elections.
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Questions by the members. Representative McNamara, did you have anything?
Only to say, Mr. Chair, I support the bill.
Okay, and there are further questions? We have, well, let's have any testifiers for or against the bill. Okay. Welcome to the committee. You'll state your name, who you represent, and then give your testimony, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Sheila Vanny. I'm the Assistant Director with the Minnesota Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. We represent the SWCDs across the state. Soil and Water Conservation Districts are special purpose units of local government focused primarily on private lands conservation, dealing with water quality and soil erosion issues. The MASWCD supports the current SWCD statute, which provides for local SWCD determinations of supervisor nomination districts for election of SWCD supervisors. We do go on record to oppose this legislation, making it mandatory for any SWCD to change their elections process from countywide to election by nomination district. If changes are sought out of concerns related to multiple candidates seeking a particular SWCD position, MASWCD would like to see the institution of a primary election in those limited situations where there are more than two candidates in order to narrow the field of candidates prior to the general election. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions by the members? Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hansen, to the point being made here, what conversations have you had with them, and have you tried to work out, I mean, I can imagine maybe, but can you enlighten me, please?
Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian, we've had this conversation for 10 years. Right, Ms. Vian?
Oh, yes. Mr. Chair, Representative Fabian, we have had ongoing dialogue with Representative Hansen and our membership on this issue. And every election cycle around this time of year, going into a November general election, our association, in cooperation with the Board of Water and Soil Resources, sends out communications and guidance to the local SWCDs, reminding them to take a look at their election nomination boundaries and to consider alternatives to the way they're currently elected. And if you do take a look at the minutes of your SWCDs, quite often you'll see that they do have this on their agenda. They take a look at their current situation, have a conversation among their SWCD board members, and then go on the record either supporting their current process or, in the case of Washington Conservation District, moving to election by nomination district.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to that point, then, I would say, under the current system, what's not working in terms of the management of the districts?
Mr. Chair, Representative Fabian, I'm not sure if that's a question for me or Representative Hansen.
I mean, from the perspective of both people, obviously I assume that you don't believe that things are not working, everything is working, but Representative Hansen, in terms of the management of the watershed districts, what's not working?
Representative Hansen.
Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian, I don't believe that the soil and water conservation districts elected countywide in the metropolitan area reflect their residents. I believe that they are, when you elect people countywide, and when I first ran for that in 1996, I believe that there were background pieces in both papers. There's very little coverage. There's no way that a candidate for soil and water supervisor can reach voters. There just really is no way that they can raise the money to reach, literally in some of the counties, hundreds of thousands of voters. It just can't happen. So then you have folks that are being elected, and I want to make sure I want to be clear on this. Soil and water districts do a great job. I carry soil and water legislation and support providing them money, but we are providing them with more and more and more money through clean water and outdoor heritage funds. They receive general tax dollars. They receive property tax money from the counties. The counties provide allocations under law. We require that the county attorneys provide representation for those. So if the voter is unable to cast a vote, an informed vote, because of the size and the scale of the districts, ultimately the representation for the voters and the expenditure of public money is not going to be sufficient.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Representative Hansen, I mean no disrespect by this, but outside of you, who is supporting this change? Is this the grassroots from the people? And again, like you said, it doesn't get a lot of attention. So,
Representative McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, to Representative Fabian's question, I am. The reality, I think, in the metropolitan area, if you don't have a name like Johnson or Dill or Hansen, if you have a hard to pronounce, hard to read name, you are not going to get elected. And Ms. Vanny,
Mr. Chair, to that point, is this a write-in ballot? You have to write the names down?
Representative Hansen.
No.
McNamara.
Mr. Chair and Ms. Vanny, I mean, I'm not surprised when you ask the people that are already in, do they support the system that got them elected? Sure. But it would be interesting to look at the names of the people that have been elected in the 5 metropolitan counties. The process right now, I want to be careful. I don't want to term it a joke, but it's got the potential to become one with how it's done right now. The entire Dakota County electing somebody for a district, it's not right. And Representative Hansen's bill is a small step, I think, going in the right direction to fix something. These are important positions, and your people are really good people. I agree with that, and we've been lucky, but we should not rule people out because of they have a long name or a name hard to spell, because they're not getting any publicity now. And at least in my district, if you had to run in the 60,000 residents of County District 1 in Dakota County, you might have a little bit of name recognition. You know, a guy like Kevin Chamberlain probably would not have gotten unreelected when it happened one time because I think the local constituents knew Kevin. Luckily, he got back on the board after whoever got elected. I don't remember who it was. Lost interest after a little while and figured out maybe this isn't for me. Representative Hansen, it's a good bill, and I'm glad that you haven't given up on the fight. And I get where the people that are entrenched in there don't want to change because they like it. They don't have to do anything. They just get reelected.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members, just as a bit of background on why SWCD nomination districts have traditionally been drawn the way that they are. The SWCDs, as board members, they're making decisions on where conservation should go on the landscape. And so if a majority of the SWCD board members are clustered in one part of the county, because that's where the majority of the population is, then you could see that you know, potentially they're going to be out of touch with what's going on the landscape in the outskirts of the county. And that isn't necessarily where the water quality and soil erosion issues are. So just as a point of background, not to enter into a debate, just historically speaking, they were set up this way to provide some geographic distribution of the board members so that they were coming to the board with some local knowledge of the landscape they represent.
Representative Uruso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo what Representative McNamara was saying about the ability to actually know who you're voting for, because in our county commissioner elections, I literally knew each of the candidates for that position, you know, on both sides of the parties and whatnot, all the people in the endorsement race and so on. And that was before I got elected here, so it wasn't because I was an official somewhere. But except for the really well-covered races in Ramsey County, you know, the Ramsey County attorney, the Ramsey County sheriff, it would be very, very difficult in Ramsey County for someone running for these positions to be well enough known, you know, by tens of thousands of people. So because it's an elected position, it's something that the voters need to have a chance to have an informed choice. So I think it would serve the voters better if we did it, if we took up this proposal. Thank you.
Further questions by the members? Further testimony by the author, the testifier? Anyone else in the audience like to testify for or against the bill? Come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for coming. Welcome. Give us your name, who you represent. Go ahead with your testimony.
I'm Mary Jo Truchon, and I'm the chair of the Anoka Conservation District Board. And so I'm from out in the provinces, and maybe I can just give you a little flavor of what it's like from being on the board. And I would like to support our association testimony from Sheila Varney. And I'm opposed to this bill as it is written. When elected to the Soil and Water Conservation District, you better have a genuine interest in natural resource management, because your total compensation in per diems each year is about $2,000. We have no taxing authority, we don't have land use authority, and we aren't regulatory. So this is not a stepping stone to a great career in some other level of government. And most people who do end up in the Soil and Water Conservation District, as ours in Anoka, have a genuine interest in managing natural resources. Our county is very rich in groundwater and surface water. And again, I will echo that if we had to change the way we are elected, the population would be concentrated in the area of the county where we don't have the most natural resources. They're downstream of the Mississippi and the Rum and Carlos Avery and the places where these streams originate. So I'm just putting, if you want to ask me questions, I've been on the board for about 15 years. We do get people who want to belong and run for it. And with today's technology, we have a great website, and we put out newspaper articles in all the local small newspapers across the county telling people who wants to run, and they can put their profile on our website, or they can be part of these newspaper articles we write. So it's not really broken out there in Anoka County, so we're hoping that we don't have to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the testifier? Being none, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And Representative Hansen, further testimony you would like to add?
Just, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the testimony. I understand it. I have been here almost 10 years. Each election time that comes around, I still get more questions about who's running for soil and water supervisor than I do about my race in phone calls coming to my home. And I get them for Ramsey County, I get them from Washington County, I get them from Hennepin County, I get them from Carver County, I get them from Scott County, and I think I've even received them from Anoka County, because people are looking for basic information about it, and I think that indicates why there's a challenge, because they can't get the information. This is not affecting Greater Minnesota. After 10 years of discussion on this, I think the real issue here immediately is in the metro area with a large population districts.
I only have to ask one thing, Representative Hansen, about the stepping stone. Do you feel that you're better off today than you were when you were a Soil Conservation Water District Director?
Mr. Chair, when the beauty of the Soil and Water District office is you can vote for a project, be on the prevailing side, and go out and see that implementation immediately. Sometimes when we vote for things here, it may be a while before we can go out and see them, or it may take a while before we get to the majority to pass them. So that's the beauty of the Soil and Water Districts, and I think we can enhance the election process.
Representative Hansen renews his motion for House Bill 1408 to be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Representative. We're doing another Hansen bill here. That is House File 2571, and this bill will be referred to the General Register. Representative Hansen, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would ask Al Kane from the Board of Water and Soil Resources to come down and walk through the bill. As he is doing that, back almost 10 years ago, I started working on drainage issues, and we created the Drainage Work Group, which is a broad-based group of various interests looking at the drainage law, which has been in Minnesota for over 100 years. And so they grind away looking at the bill, looking at statute, and looking at where they can achieve consensus changes. And this bill is the product of that consensus process for this year. And Mr. Kane has been chairing that process and will walk through what the bill does.
Welcome to the committee. State your name and go ahead with your testimony. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Al Kane. I serve as the Chief Engineer for the Board of Water and Soil Resources, and also as the facilitator of the Drainage Work Group, as Representative Hansen indicated. And I believe in your packet there is a fact sheet about the Drainage Work Group. As Representative Hansen indicated, it's a broad-based group. It's been around since 2006, and it includes drainage authorities, farm groups, environmental groups, other associations who have an interest in drainage, state agencies with an interest in drainage, and also we have some legislative staff who participate in the work group meetings. A key point to recognize about the work group is that it is consensus-based. It is a broad stakeholder group, voluntary participation, and from the beginning they have agreed to operate on a consensus basis. What is in House File 2571 is actually the fourth set of consensus recommendations to come to the legislature. I recall that last year the legislature also passed the third set of consensus recommendations for updating of state drainage law, Chapter 103E. And just for history, if you are interested, on the back of that fact sheet about the Drainage Work Group are the summary of the three previous sets of consensus recommendations. There should be also in your packet a handout titled Drainage Work Group Consensus Recommendations for Update of Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 103E, dated 2/14/14. And this is a summary also of what is in 2571 with some explanation for each of the recommended changes. And I will summarize the general purposes of the different components. And your analyst, Janelle Taylor, had also provided a fact sheet that also provides a good overview of the four different pieces that are in this bill and this recommendations from the work group. The first is to update subdivision 1 of section 103E015. And I'll just clarify too, I should have said from the beginning that all of these recommendations from the work group this year are regarding section 103E015. So subdivision 1 is the environmental and land use considerations before drainage work is done. That involves drainage system establishment and improvement. Those are defined as drainage projects. And those recommendations, or I should say those provisions for criteria, have actually existed in drainage law since 1973. And they were last updated in 1987. So within subdivision 1, what we're trying to do is to update the language to make it more current, but also to clarify and to provide some additional opportunity for coordination with local water plans, somewhat in anticipation of the proposed work that's going on right now for the One Watershed, One Plan initiative, which the legislature provided authority for in recent years. So all of the provisions in subdivision 1 are to clarify, update, and provide a bit more robustness, if you will, about the different considerations and their purposes, and also to provide for a clearer definition of what we believe is important. Part of this is to be able to have drainage law better enable multiple purposes to be addressed along with other water planning efforts. The second part of this bill is addition of a new subdivision, 1A, and it is titled Investigating Potential Use of External Sources of Funding and Technical Assistance. This new subdivision that's being recommended would make a connection between 015, Section 103E015, and Section 103E011, Subdivision 5, which is a provision that was added to drainage law in the year 2000, which allows drainage authorities to use external sources of funding. And so we're trying to create a connection to that. We're also trying to create a connection to the local government units who have water planning authority and typically also have knowledge of external sources of funding in programs and other efforts for multiple purposes of water management. In that new subdivision, we also have a provision that drainage authorities may contact the Board of Water and Soil Resources if they're looking for additional information about external sources of funding or technical assistance. And that is a permissive authority. We also then, in the third portion of this bill, it's an update and clarification of Subdivision 2 of Section 103E015. The objective there is to more clearly indicate that it does apply to repairs. The existing language actually does apply to repair because it refers to projects and it also refers to other work on drainage systems under other law, including 103E. So this is not a new provision that it applies to drainage. It's actually a clarification that undoes, if you will, a removal of that word back when the law was recodified in, I believe, 1985 or 1990, whenever water law was recodified. Repair was dropped from that section. It still actually applies. As far as we understand, the reviser believed that that was a redundant, if you will, word in there, but there is a desire on the part of the work group to clarify that and add that word back. The other piece that we're doing to Subdivision 2 is just adding wetlands as one of the natural resources to be considered, which wasn't in the list that was created when this was first adopted, actually in 1955. So Subdivision 2 harkens back to 1955, and this is just an update to include clarification. And then the fourth provision within this bill is all of the references in the remainder of drainage law that refer to Section 103E015 Subdivision 1. We're updating those references because we're recommending updating the head note for Subdivision 1. So those are all technical updates. And with that, Mr. Chairman, members, I would be happy to address any questions you may have.
Questions by the member? There being none, for or against testifiers to come before us? There being none, I don't have any questions. Representative Hansen renews his motion to send this bill to the General Register. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you very much. Also, we have minutes to approve. Representative Fabian, I know you're very cautiously and carefully looked at the minutes of March 5, 2014. Could you make a motion, please, to move the minutes? So moves, Mr. Chair. Representative Fabian moves. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Mr. Rosenau, will you come up to the podium, please? Yep, that's you. Sit right down. Okay, this is our very capable page. That is our help here in this, and I have been remiss in every meeting not getting him introduced to you so that he can help us in the future through the balance of this session. So, sir, if you could introduce yourself to the committee members and tell us how you got here and why you're here. And I don't expect that last question to end with a question mark.
Okay. As Chair Dill said, my name is Michael. Last name is Rosno. Came from my dad. Grew up in Robbinsdale, Minnesota. We have a CVS pharmacy now. It's pretty big. I am going to get my master's degree in public policy from Northwestern in Chicago, Illinois. I'm focusing in global policy. And I came here, I worked last session for AARP because I care about old people and old people issues. And I love the environment. I thought about going to CEU in Colorado to do environmental policy instead of global policy, but decided to go to Northwestern. I'm a male. I am 6'4", blue eyes. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Well, actually, any questions from the members? And you are here taking care of the chair, because I meet the qualifications old. But anyone have any questions? I'd like to welcome you to the committee. And Representative Benson.
I have a question. Well, welcome. But who's this other fellow over here, too?
Yes, well, if he come forward now, this is a person that leadership sent down to us to help us out here in a short-term basis. So we'd like, since we have a few minutes, we have you come forward too. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Michael Bowman, and I'm a senior at Cretin-Derham Hall. This summer I was at Boise State, and I met the speaker when he came and talked to us. And I asked him if there's any opportunities or things I could do at the Capitol to work there during the session or be involved at all. And through some people, I ended up here.
Very good.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cretin-Derham Hall. Outside of being here this week, what's the most exciting thing that's happened at Cretin-Derham Hall in the last week?
We beat Apple Valley in basketball, and we will be playing tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Congratulations. Representative Yaruso.
And whose district do you live in?
That would be yours.
Thank you very much.
Oh, are we getting the quiz now? Thank you very, very much for your work, and we appreciate you being here, and sometimes that gets overlooked, and I didn't want it to, and I thank you very much. And with that, the meeting is